Hello and welcome. You're tuned in to the best in paranormal talk radio. This is Darkness Radio. I'm your host, Dave Schrader. Along with me, Tim Dennis. Hello, Tim.
Hi.
We've got a lot brewing, man. A lot going on this month. A lot of great guests lined up between now and the end of the year, really. I'm really excited about the people that have been cropping up, popping up. And our guest tonight is a recurrent visitor on our show. She's been with us a number of times over the years. She's back. Her brand new book is called Life with the Afterlife, 13 Truths I Learned About Ghosts. Amy Bruni, host of Kindred Spirits on the Travel Channel, is back with us. Amy, great to have you here. Thank you for coming on.
Thanks for having me. I always love to chat with you guys.
Your book is great. First of all, it's a great read. And, you've got some interesting aspects and insights that you share. Was it, as somebody doing a ghost show, and you were with ghost hunters for a number of years, then with Kindred Spirits, and doing this, is it weird to literally put it to paper? It's one thing when you're in a conversation to kind of say, yeah, this is what I believe, but is it another thing to commit it to print, to look at it in hard definable words? Wow, this is what I believe.
Yes, it is. And it's also, it was such a crazy trip down memory lane, because I didn't just want to write a book where I just kind of threw at people like, this is how you ghost hunt. I really wanted to show people how I arrived at these ideas and theories and thoughts. And what that involved was really revisiting a lot of, my experiences over the years. And then also a lot of voices from people who I've met over the years in the paranormal and dear friends and people I trust and fellow researchers to kind of weigh in on these ideas. And so I loved seeing it all come together. And I'm very happy with the final product. I like that it's, not just, another investigation book. It really does take you through a journey. And I also love that there's so many people from the paranormal field featured in the book, including you, which I love.
Yeah, that was a nice surprise. So thank you very much for including me. And I noticed when my daughter had found the book sitting on the counter and she flipped through to the back and she's going through and she goes, Dad, you're in this book. You're in this book. And I'm like, does that legitimize me now? Am I a legit person? I appear in Amy Bruni's book. She's like, that's really cool. So it was a nice little nod. So thank you for a couple of mentions and giving me a chance to contribute in any way. So thank you for that. But sitting down and writing a book like this and kind of revealing your inner thoughts about the paranormal, how drastically has your perception of the paranormal shifted since you began your journey, in 2007?
Yeah, so I think you and I met in 2007-ish, maybe 2006-ish, I can't remember. And that was really when I started kind of exploring the paranormal in a group setting, like really getting to know other people in the field. And before that, I had been part of, different paranormal teams and done a lot of research on my own. But I kind of found this whole new world of weirdos about then. And even then, the idea of the paranormal to me was very much a novelty. I loved the field. I took it very seriously, but I also was kind of in it for an adrenaline rush, which I think a lot of people were. Like, we were intensely curious about it, and we would have these really crazy, wild experiences and look at each other and go, oh my God, did that just happen? Wow, that's so cool. And then we would just leave. And then over the years, I started kind of really thinking that this is a lot deeper than that. How many really strange, weird occurrences that defy all logic and science am I going to have before I start really questioning, what is this that's actually happening? And so now we've really kind of arrived at this idea that there's a more human side to the paranormal, that these spirits actually have a reason for being here, or that they're trying to convey some sort of message. And that there's a lot of, research and kind of a psychological aspect to this. And so it's really come full circle. And I see a lot of people in the paranormal having the same kind of epiphany, people who've been doing this for a long time.
Well, there's epiphany or burnout in some of the instances of people that have been at this for a while. Do you ever border on that? Do you ever get to the point where it's like sometimes it's so overwhelming to be dealing with the dead? And, I catch myself in that too. I'm like, geez, Dave, how much time are you going to spend focused on death and not really enjoy life as much? Does that ever resonate with you?
Absolutely. So I know, I struggle with anxiety, and I think you do as well. And one of the hardest things you can do as someone who has anxiety issues is consistently think about how you could die or how something could go wrong, or, surround yourself with people who have had terrible things happen to them, when you're trying to help families. And so sometimes you have to have like a mental health check and go, okay, this is a little much right now. Usually after filming a season of Kindred Spirits, I am usually by the end of the season in a place where I need to check out for a minute and like go do something else. We just wrapped another season, and the first thing Adam and I did, pandemic or not, we headed to Disney World. We were like, we are going to Disney World. And I think that was just this much needed breath, because I always come back. I adore the paranormal, and I love the people in it. And I can't stay away for too long, but I am always intensely aware of when I need to take a little bit of a break, especially for my daughter. I don't want to be, I'm already the crazy ghost lady, so I need to like have some normalcy in her life here and there.
How do you balance that? That's been the thing for me with my kids. I don't want to make it seem like I'm dirty and hiding in the closet about what I do, but I also don't want to make it a thing so that they have to feel they have to answer for me. They don't have to feel like they have to be interested in what I'm doing. How do you deal with that with your daughter?
Well, right now, to her, it's just kind of a novelty. Like, we haven't had those really deep conversations about ghosts. And I tell this to a lot of parents who ask me how to handle it, because she's young. She just turned 8. And, when you start having those kind of hardcore conversations about ghosts and the spirit world, that brings up a lot of other questions about our own mortality, things that, kids that young don't really need to be thinking about just yet. And so I just keep it very casual. And so for her, the paranormal is this opportunity for her to go to really cool places. She's, got so many friends that she knows when she comes to events. I'm sure you've seen her at events. She gets to know all of you guys, and she walks around, and right now it's just this really cool thing. And I'm going to keep it that way as long as I can. But there is this kind of, I also strive to be pretty normal. Like, I would say Adam and I are two of the most normal, like, happy ghost hunters you can meet. We're always, like, we try, we don't, and I think that stands true for a lot of the people in the paranormal field. They don't look like ghost hunters. They just look like very normal people, but have very strange jobs.
Yeah, that is absolutely true. But balancing family and the paranormal, do you have concerns of, especially you're getting into people's lives in a way that a lot of us don't doing these paranormal shows, where, a lot of us are investigating historic sites and stories like that. And I know you do that as well, but you're really kind of going in to help families and, try to get these answers. Do you ever have a concern that any of this energy or spirits are going to affect or influence your life?
Yeah, actually, I've really done a lot of kind of soul searching on the idea that spirits are influenced by the energy around them. I think that a lot of families that we go into, like a lot of the families we investigate for, there's almost always major family issues going on, or some sort of tension there that I think kind of fuels that energy and either causes or intensifies the paranormal activity that's happening in the home. And Adam and I both, we have to shake that off sometimes. We did a couple cases this last season where we both got out of the house and we were both like, ooh, like you can like physically like feel yourself like just trying to shake that energy off, because you don't want to take that with you. And I don't do anything. I just kind of see myself as a very strong individual that won't let that get to me. But I am also not afraid to, notice when that's happening and take like mental and spiritual steps internally to be like, nope, that is not going to affect me. So I always tell, people ask me all the time, are you worried about things following you? Are you worried about, something attaching to you? And I just think it's really important to be a strong person before you put yourself in these more kind of tumultuous situations. And so that has worked for me thus far. But I feel like if I felt mentally weak or I was in some sort of compromised position, I don't think I would walk into some of these houses.
Yeah, that's something you always have to be very cautious of when you're investigating these claims, because it does seem to, I hate using this word because it sounds nefarious, but it seems like it can manipulate your energy and your attitude. And if you're already in a bad place, it can really get into your head.
Yeah, absolutely. I do think that one of the things I've been exploring a lot, and I kind of go into in the book, is I do think there is a major psychological component to a lot of the activity that people experience. And I think a lot of it has to do with the people experiencing it. I think that energy can manifest either from someone who has passed away or from someone who is still very much with us. And I'm always so aware that energy can come from me, or that energy can affect me. And you can feel that when you walk in a house. And so I just, I just try to stay as strong as possible. We try to take some time in between cases, try to take a breather, try to be at 100% whenever possible.
Being around this for so long and hanging out with Chip and mediums, do you feel like your sensitivity is increasing? Because I can tell you, season 2 of the Holzer Files is airing right now. There have been a few moments when Shane and I feel like we have tapped into whatever element Cindy's in, not to her level, but it can be really overwhelming to us when we start to sense energy and presence. And I'm noticing that sensitivity seems to be coming more and more often. Does that happen to you? And if so, how do you deal with it?
Yes, it does. I feel as though I can tell if a space is haunted almost immediately. I can walk in and it's just like when you walk in, it's just like if you're having like a dinner party and someone who's really grumpy walks in the room and the whole energy changes. Like it's that kind of energy shift. Like you just feel different. And I've had moments too where Chip will be doing his reading or his walkthrough, and I will literally be thinking in my head exactly what he says before he says it. Like I get the same exact feeling. And I don't know if that's me just being so close to Chip that we're that attached, or if I'm actually picking something up. Like, I don't feel like I'm a majorly psychic person. I do think I'm very intuitive. I do think I am a very empathetic person. And so I think those might work to my advantage. But I have had some intense moments where I just like, it's kind of like, I don't know if you've had this happen, but sometimes when we're doing like an EVP session, I can tell if we're going to get answers or not. It's very weird. I can tell if there is something responding. Like when we play it back, I'll know when there's nothing there. It's strange, but then I'll also know that we're about to get like some really great responses before we get them. So there is something I'm sensing, but I'm not Chip Coffee level.
Would you want to? I mean, if you knew tomorrow you could wake up and have the same abilities as Chip Coffee, would you want that?
No, I wouldn't. And I think it's very telling right now that with everything going on in the world, our psychic friendship has barely left the house. And I know that, he's been very vocal about the fact that he has some pre-existing conditions and, and so he's not to leave. But I also sometimes think, like, what is Chip seeing? Like, what does Chip know? Because Chip is not someone to stay at home. Like, this has to be so hard for him. And so there's part of me that's like, oh, I feel like Chip knows things that maybe we are not even aware of yet. So, yeah, I don't know that I would want it, although it has been hugely beneficial to me many times in my life.
Yeah, I vacillate on that thought myself all the time. I'm like, boy, would I want to be able to have all of that? But I watch how Cindy, who is diligent, man, she eats right, she works out every day, she meditates every day, she really hones her craft, and she gets overwhelmed. I just think I don't know that I'm prepared for that, especially living in a house with all the kids I've got. I think I'd be bombarded with psychic energy. That would end up dropping.
Yeah, that's the last thing you need.
Right. Oh,
yeah, no, I love Cindy. She's always like, she's intense. Like as I've gotten to know her now, the few times we've been able to hang out, I'm like, wow, she is very streamlined, which I appreciate. I'm like, I'm like very envious of it. I wish I could be that like diligent like her, but yeah, she's really takes care of her vessel, which I think is so important.
So the question remains then, if you could be given this gift, but you'd have to give up wine, what would happen, Amy?
I literally was just taking a sip of wine.
It's like I'm psychic.
Well, I guess that's your answer. I guess you know the answer to that.
There you go.
Honestly, today has been such a crazy press day, and I was looking forward to. I was like, you know what? When I talk to Dave, I know Dave so well. I know I can pour a glass of wine finally and have a moment.
Unlike the rest of the day when you're just taking quick sips out of the bottle, I appreciate that you're able to slow down.
Oh yeah, just straight swig. You know.
What in writing this book really kind of surprised you the most from your perspective?
How emotional it made me. It was, you know, I think that I think we're so busy. Like, I'm such a busy person. I don't spend a lot of time reflecting on the journey. And so to see it kind of take shape and to kind of go back to like the Ghost Hunters days, like even the dedication, we're doing the Audible book or the audiobook, and I read the dedication, the introduction, and the final chapter. And then like an actual person who's good at this does the rest of the book. And I honestly could not get through the dedication without crying. Like, my voice cracked. And even when I was reading the final chapter, and so I'm sure there's something there, you know, something inside me that needed to do that. But I was very surprised at just how kind of, I don't know, just emotional the whole journey made me. And then, you know, and also I was like, wow, this has been, I've been at this for a while now in this regard, like this whole TV journey and events and the paranormal, and, you know, trying to make, the hardest struggle has been trying to maintain my integrity through all of this. And it's been a crazy journey.
For listeners who don't know, what is it like to go from being a part of a team like you were on Ghost Hunters, where there's maybe not as much stress or pressure on your shoulders, to carrying a program like you do with Kindred Spirits with you and Adam and Chip? I mean, I've got to guess that's quite a shift in dynamic.
It absolutely is. You know, Ghost Hunters, it was, you know, we showed up to work and we did our thing and left. You know, it's almost like that kind of job that, that we all have. And although I loved it and I worked really hard at it and, had a great team to work with, thankfully. But then when Adam and I started Kindred, it became this whole new world of like watching rough cuts and, being actual producers and choosing the locations and then getting on set and everyone's looking to you for the answer. And, the first season or two, it was really overwhelming. And even now, we're in a major groove now, which is very nice, but we're also very careful not to get complacent, and we just work just as hard. And so, and honestly too, a big thing is we don't have, it's just Adam and me, and versus when, with Ghost Hunters, there were, 6 to 8 investigators. So setting up and taking down and stuff, it was like a group effort. Now Adam and I are like, oh man, maybe we need a team. This is a lot of work.
Well, I'm sure we've got about 100,000 listeners that are all raising their hand, more than happy to jump into the fray with you. You have to be careful in that situation, though, right? Working with other people, is it, obviously you've known Chip a long time, but to bring that dynamic in as a full-time effect to the show, was there some getting used to that? I mean, to go from you and Adam to kind of expanding it to 3 people, or was it more of a release valve because it lessened the stress off of you two to allow somebody else to kind of, dig their heels in and look into this aspect of the haunting?
Well, it honestly didn't feel that different because so Chip comes in for one night, and that he was doing that so often anyway, where he would come in for one night, he does his walkthrough, and then if needed, we use him for the investigation. And so it was just kind of like, Chip was there usually 2/3 of the time. And then season 4, we decided, like, let's have Chip every episode. And so it really it wasn't a huge change for us. I think the only thing is sometimes we were like having to figure out how to incorporate him depending on the case, because we wanted to use him in different ways. Now that we had him all the time, we were like, wow, we really want to take advantage of this. And then now, filming during the pandemic, Chip couldn't leave home. And so we really had to think of interesting ways to use him, because we still use him every episode remotely. And honestly, like the results that we got are incredible. And I don't want to say that Chip works better from home, but I think it's just more impressive or something. I don't know. We were continuously blown away. So yeah,
I
really
that's
wasn't
removing
that much of a shift.
I wonder if that's removing the distractions of traveling, the distractions of hotels and picking up on all the people around you. He's more comfortable at home. He's able to actually connect kind of one-on-one with those situations now, instead of all of the superfluous activity that goes on around you while you're traveling and trying to make these shows happen.
Yeah, totally. I mean, and I think too, like he would start, I also think Chip is so close to us. Like we are like a family. And so he would start picking things up even before we would call him or Skype him in or whatever. As soon as we were traveling to a location or we would arrive at the location, he would just start texting us and the producers and be like, this is what I'm getting. And he'll be start writing notes. And we're like, Chip, you're not on camera yet. We need you to just say these things on camera so that we can, incorporate them in the show. But yeah, he would just things would start flying at him. And it was just, it's very, very strange.
Do you feel that, having him do what he's doing from this safe distance and you guys being out there, with COVID, did it affect the way that you and Adam moved forward? I know it shut us down on Holzer Files. We had filmed 5 episodes and then had to stop for the COVID break. And then we were the first canaries in the coal mine to go back out and do this again. And it was weird and unnerving. And we had to try to clear our mental clutter of that concern and fear and just, kind of that overall world sense that's going on of gloom and doom, and focus on the moment at hand. But I found that kind of a release for me. How was it different for you and the team to go out and film and do this I shouldn't even say post-COVID. We're not through it yet.
No, it was weird because I think the first episode or 2, we had to find our groove and get kind of, I don't want to say comfortable with it, but you do get used to the COVID filming. Like you get used to the mask, you get used to the constant testing, you get used to the temperature checks. And so once we got kind of over that hurdle, it felt, it was a bit of normalcy for me. I was like, okay, we're back at this. I'm back with people that I love. I love my crew. I get to see these people every day. It felt just like old times, and so we had our little pod of people on the road, and our crew's very small. It's Adam and me, and I think 7 people. And so it was a nice break from everything. It was like, let's just get back to work. And it was strange because we would be filming and feeling very normal and okay and getting through it. But people were constantly worried about me. I'd have friends and family being like, where are you? What's happening? Are you okay? And, because it just seemed like such a foreign concept to be out traveling in the world while all this was happening. But I'm so glad that we did it. And I think that honestly, we produced probably the best season of Kindred Spirits yet during a pandemic, which I think says a lot.
Well, we noticed on our show that, especially when we went back out for the last 8 episodes, here, a lot of these places had been starved of attention. The spirits seemed like they wanted to be heard. And it was really bizarre. We got, I think, some of the best evidence I've ever come across. And the stories really seemed to take on a life of their own after this. Were you finding a similar kind of situation in the way the spirits were, people are living in their homes, anxiety ridden and stressed and panicked, and then dealing with what they think is a haunting. And was there a difference in attitude and sense of these people that the clients that you go in to help?
Absolutely. So I feel like the spirit, so a lot of the places we did, like some of the places we did were businesses that were just closed because of COVID. And I think that the spirits definitely were like, what is happening here? Where are all my people? And so they were very anxious to speak to us by the time we got there. And then there were other places, family homes and things that we did that I think that the stress level there was just heightened because of everything that's going on. And then so the spirits there were just nervous, like, also, very anxious and wanting to reach out. And so it was definitely different. It was a totally different feel. And it just goes to show just historically, like how much tragic events or historic events can play into paranormal activity. And I talk about this in the book a lot about how I feel like the pandemic is kind of like, it's going to give rise to the paranormal. People are going to be very interested in it. They already have started kind of revisiting it, just like they did after the Civil War, just like they did after Vietnam, just like they did after 9/11. Moments of great turmoil bring moments of reflection on your own mortality and what happens next to the living. And then I think that the dead and the spirits can tell that everyone is having those thoughts.
People, keep asking me, what is this uptick in paranormal activity? I've just said, I don't think there's an uptick. I think you're home more and you notice things a lot more now because you're bored and there's not that separation element. Do you think there's something to that? Or do you think that there is also kind of a new yield to the paranormal, a new energy that's infused it?
I think it's both. I think a lot of people are spending more time at home. It's quieter. The world is not nearly as busy as it was. So I think people are noticing and questioning things more. But I also think that the energy, because we've done so many experiments with energy work and people and what they give off. I really do feel that the world right now is just, there's a lot of stress and anxiety. And I do feel like that fuels something. And whether or not that's existing spirits or if it's creating some sort of new spiritual energy, I'm not sure. But I do think that the uptick can be attributed to both of those things.
Let's talk about the book, Life with Afterlife, 13 Truths I Learned About Ghosts. Amy Bruni, the host of Kindred Spirits, has a new book out and available. We have a link up to that book on today's show so you can find it. And as a matter of fact, you can go check out our Darkness Radio Amazon store because we've got a lot of great books that you hear featured on the show and swag, clothing, toys, games, all kinds of fun stuff. So if you are locked at home and you're looking for something to do, we've got the answers for you. Just go to darknessradio.com, click on the store tab, and then go on into our Amazon storefront, and you'll be able to find all of this great stuff there. In examining some of these truths, I love the titles of the chapters and the way that you kind of set this up. And I think my favorite title is for chapter 11, Don't Believe Anything I Just Told You.
Yeah.
I love that, and I know what you're going for on that. But for people that are looking for answers, looking for something deep from your experiences, what are some of the truths? And I know you don't want to go super deep in because you want people to buy buy the book, but what are some of the truths that you found that you feel really kind of you think people are going to be surprised by, I guess?
Well, I think that the chapter titles themselves are definitely meant to pique interest. And so I hope that people don't look at those and just go, oh, wow, this girl, I'm like, you better read the chapter. They're very tongue-in-cheek. But I would say that one of the biggest things I like to talk about is the idea of crossing spirits over. I find a lot of people subscribe to the idea that we somehow know what spirits should be doing when we can't really even prove that they exist, to be honest. And so I felt at some point I started realizing that this idea of like ridding a place of energy or sending a ghost to the light or, that was kind of dismissive, that if a spirit was actually trying to say something to you or trying to communicate with you, that maybe listening to them and finding out what it is that they want or need and why they're lingering, that might actually be the key to kind of helping them along on their way. And it's not an easy job. It can take days, weeks, months of research and investigating. But now I feel like I've seen it work over the years as we investigate. And so I kind of, just personally feel like maybe that whole crossing over theory is not necessarily something that I want to subscribe to anymore. I would say too, another one would be there's no right way to find spirits, kind of along those same lines. Like, I always pay attention to what other people are doing, what other researchers are thinking. I ingest all of it, and then I kind of decide, what path do I want to take? And I encourage everyone to do the same. And that's why I said that last thing in the last chapter when I said, don't believe everything you read. It's really like, these are my ideas, these are my thoughts, these are my friends and fellow researchers and what we've come up with, but don't be afraid to forge your own path and your own way of doing things.
Let's take a quick break. We'll come back. We've got more Life with the Afterlife, more with Amy Bruni right here on Darkness Radio. We're back, and we're hoping that you and your families are staying safe and healthy and happy during this time of year. Our guest today, as we continue to bring you the best in paranormal talk radio, Amy Bruni. Life with the Afterlife is the name of the book. 13 Truths I Learned About Ghosts. How has your work in this field changed the way you look at death itself?
That's a really good question. I am still just as terrified of it as I've always been. I'm not always convinced that everything we're dealing with or talking to are actual spirits of people who have passed on. There's part of me that wonders if we're dealing with, quantum physics and time folds and energy and so I don't feel confident in saying I know what happens when we die. And so I do feel, though, that the happier I am with my life and knowing that I'm living my life to the fullest makes me feel more comfortable with the idea of dying. Like, wasting life to me is the worst thing you can do. And so just having been around so many families and people who've had major tragedies in their lives really has kind of put into perspective for me how important it is to live your life to the fullest, as cliche as that sounds. But so I think that's kind of the way that I cope with still not having any answers.
Yeah, it is weird. Now, has your exploration of the supernatural with ghosts altered your thoughts on things like Bigfoot or aliens, fairies, things that really don't fit under the ghostly umbrella, but if you take a bigger step back, seem like they may?
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, I think that a lot of, when you look back at or look at some alien abduction cases or encounters with cryptid type creatures, a lot of those mirror ghost experiences. So I think it might be kind of in the eyes of the person who's having the experience, what they decide to label it as, like what is their belief system. And so that's why, one of the chapters in the book is if ghosts are real, Bigfoot is probably real too. It's the idea that you can believe in something as crazy as ghosts, but don't automatically dismiss something like Bigfoot or aliens, because if you're going to be just as open-minded about spirits, you should be able to look at other things as well with the same kind of open-mindedness. So yeah, it definitely has. So I always listen when people come to me with their stories, and I go into in the book. I did have a really strange cryptid encounter growing up, and so I know there's weird stuff out there of all shapes, sizes.
Is there one element that you still kind of draw the line on that you're like, yeah, this, I just can't buy into this aspect of claims?
It's not that I don't believe that there are very negative hauntings out there. I do believe that there is very negative energy. I don't like to see people run to the demonic things so quickly when I found that so much activity that can be attributed to something negative can actually be explained. And so it's one of those things where it's like, you don't want to tell people that it's not real, because there have been a couple cases in my life where I went, okay, this could be something to be very wary of, but I just wish people wouldn't jump to that so quickly. So that's one that I'm always very cautious of.
How do you separate what's your delineation line between being something truly malevolent and evil and something just, a dark presence or just a pissed off ghost?
Well, I think that if something is truly like negative and otherworldly, the activity you're going to see is beyond what I think most people even know there's something capable of. You're going to see something that turns your own secrets against you, starts spouting things at you that there's no way that it would know, has the capability to lift a refrigerator off the ground. These are the kinds of things that you see when you have a true, negative type haunting. And it's very, very rare. I've only had one instance where I think I had something like that happen. But the rest of the time you do meet these spirits. So you meet these spirits like they're your friends, but that, will do things like push you and scratch you and growl and swear at you and try to make you feel intimidated. But there are living people that will do the exact same things. And, we have to remember that just because someone dies doesn't mean they stop being a jerk. There's a very real possibility that you're meddling with something or someone that doesn't want you there. And maybe they're just not a nice person, it's depending on the situation. And so I think people do jump to those negative type haunting definitions very quickly, but I don't know that they would know what to expect if they actually were faced with one.
A lot of people will discuss the idea of what a spirit is or why it's there. What have you, in all these years, have you come to any defining lines to say, this, I believe, is what's causing a haunting? This is what I believe ghosts are, or does your perception on that change constantly?
It changes constantly, but I also think there are a number of different scenarios. I think that there are like the classic kind of residual type spirits that are energy that just plays over and over again. I think there are more intelligent type spirits that will interact with you, that will, converse with you, that need something or want something. And then I believe there are these spirits that have been completely invented and created by living people. So I think those right now, especially the latter, are the ones that I encounter the most.
Where do you stand on the concept, and this is hard for me as a parent, but where do you stand on the concept of children's spirits?
Oh, I think they exist, and I think that one of the most damaging rumors in the paranormal is this idea that spirits are demon ghosts, like the ghosts of children are demonic ghosts. And when people come to me with that, and I just look at them and I go, what if you're wrong? Like, what if you are actually encountering the spirit of a child and you are treating them automatically as though they are a demonic entity? Like, how are you so certain? And, so I think that the idea that children can become spirits, it makes sense, because if there was anyone who would maybe still need something or who would be confused, it would be a child. And so I approach them like any other spirit. I do find that I have encountered the ghosts of children, but they're not nearly as common as you would think. I would say probably most of the spirits we encounter are adults. But then there is this whole idea too, where there's been spirits of, people we've encountered who died as children, but then presented as adults. Like they continue to age mentally, which is very strange. So just more questions, more questions.
Yeah, it's weird to me. I keep wanting, maybe that's what keeps all of our drive going is we want these answers. We keep digging and picking at these paranormal scabs, hoping that one of them is going to finally release the genie of knowledge. And I don't know about you, but it seems like every time I start to wrap my head around what it is we're really dealing with, it slips through my fingers like sands through the hourglass, and I just am left with even more questions than I was the day before. Is that frustrating for you as well?
I love it. Like I love that I can't quite figure it out, because it does keep me very interested. And I love when something new happens. I love when a new question is posed. I know when something happens that completely derails a theory that I had. Like I find the universe so fascinating, and I just think that that's what keeps me going. And I fully expect to never have any answers, but it's almost like playing with them. And I don't want to say playing because I don't want to like diminish what it is that we're doing, but it is doing these experiments and having these really crazy different mixed results. And that is what keeps me interesting. If it became completely predictable and I knew what was going on and the same thing happened all the time, then I might get bored. But I mean, I've been at this now for literally decades, and I'm still really into it.
What warnings do you put in play for people that are interested in the paranormal? I mean, I know you have a chapter that says that ghost hunting is a hobby, not a job. But for people that, hobbies are stamp collecting and knitting and grooming kittens, to me, I mean, that's safety. At least you're going to do is end up with a nasty tasting tongue from too much stamp glue. But what we do, does seem to pose quite a few different challenges.
It does. And, I think, I think that we get maybe a little deeper than the casual paranormal observer. But I think that if you start out kind of appreciating it as a hobby, and maybe it becomes a very intense hobby, and looking at it from the perspective that you're doing something that you love, something that you're really interested in, and loving it just for doing it rather than trying to turn it into a moneymaker or a career, you just have a deeper appreciation for it, I feel like. I think that when I started all this, I just really loved, hanging out with my paranormal team or going to events and seeing people. And, it wasn't until I was on Ghost Hunters for a couple years that I really thought, well, maybe I could actually do something with this. And, maybe I could find a way to keep doing what I love. And so it is, but I think that's rare. And so I think you have to do it for the love of it to begin with, and the interest in it. And then maybe one day it can shift into something else. But if you go into it expecting it to become your career, I feel like people might be disappointed, or they might stress themselves out too much. They might not just truly enjoy it, like kind of need to do to keep going.
Doesn't that seem weird, though, to say enjoy it? We're talking possibly to dead people, but it's something that we enjoy doing. So, it's a challenge that we put forth and go out and try to accomplish this communication and what's going on. Sometimes I almost feel guilty about it because I feel like it's, something that shouldn't be something I really enjoy as much as I do.
Yeah, I could see that. I think that was part of the shift, though. I think that was part of the shift for me, where I went from, okay, I'm not going to keep poking these spirits and then just leaving. I think that part of kind of coping with the fact that I enjoy it so much, and kind of coping with that and making not myself feel better about it, but kind of shifting that, was just kind of going to that place of, well, if I'm going to be doing this, I want to at least help. Like, how can I help in this situation? And that honestly has made it a lot more rewarding as well, because I do feel like we've helped. Like we've obviously helped individual families. I feel like we've really started to actually help spirits. And then I also feel like we're helping by kind of sending this message of, humanizing spirits and looking at them less as a novelty. And so that to me, I think is what I enjoy about it. And I just love the history of it. I love the history of the paranormal. I love reading about it. I love the community of the paranormal. Like, there's so many things I love about it besides just walking around in the dark trying to talk to dead people.
I remember having this discussion with my mom, who I know you met a few times at our events. And I just said, Mom, sometimes I feel bad bringing all these people together over such a morbid curiosity. And she stopped me and she looked around the room and she said, look at all the people here having fun. Look at all the people here that are living life and experiencing something new and getting out of their comfort zones, and they found a place they belong. I think if the spirits exist, it's for this exact reason, to bring people together.
Yeah, and she was 1,000% correct. You and I go to a lot of events and conferences, and there is such a comfort level there with people who are looking for something else, but they feel very safe doing so. And they're having such a good time because they can finally relax. Like, I'm around people who aren't going to think I'm totally weird when I talk about my belief system and my ideas and my interest in, UFOs and ghosts and all these things. And it's an amazing thing to see. I honestly have missed the events so much this year. Like, I miss our people. Like, I didn't realize how much I relied on those to stay sane, to be honest.
I feel you. We, the Holzer Files got to do something really unique. We went back to a place that means a lot to you and I know, the Queen Mary, and we were the first team to get to investigate with it fully shut down. Everybody that's ever gone in there has had to deal with the nightlife and employees and a boat full of people sleeping on it. And this sleeping time capsule was so weird, having had so many great times aboard that ship and just loving every bit of it. It was like you walked into a mausoleum, and an unhappy mausoleum, being back on the Queen Mary. That was really unsettling to me to be back there when it was like that. And I told Cindy and Shane, I said, when this pandemic lifts, Darkness Radio events, I think we're going to come back and we're going to start doing some of these events because we need this lifeblood for ourselves and for these moments. And, gosh, it's brought so many great people into our lives to go out and explore and see these things. And like you said, just feel like a community, that it's worthy of going out and, maybe not to the level we were of 8-9 events a year, but coming back for a couple times just to have some fun and reunite with friends. And I'd love to try to put something together and have all of us get back together for a nice reunion. Can you believe it's been this December? It will be 8 years since we've done a Darkness Radio big event. And it's been, I think, 10 years since I've done a Darkness Radio event that you were a part of. 10 years.
I mean, it's been a long time. Yeah, it's been wild. And actually, I think one of the first events I went to was, I think, the Stanley and then the Queen Mary. And I have some crazy pictures from the Queen Mary. Like, that honestly just really resonated with me, what you just said, seeing it empty like that. Had to be so disconcerting. It is weird because you look at the spaces, and I'm sure you're just remembering, because we went to the Mount Washington recently. I went there for lunch because I just wanted to go back. And it's open, but it's not really open. And I got very emotional because I just kept looking around and just kind of reliving these moments I'd had there over the years, and just seeing like everything chained off and seeing everything empty and quiet. And I was shook. I was like, okay, I don't really know how to process this. You
do your strange events, strange escapes events, and people can keep up with you. Are you doing any of those during this time, or are you taking it back because of what's going on in the world around us?
We canceled everything. I think we are going to go through, we have a Belvoir Winery event scheduled for December. And I think we're going to do it because we have enough space there. It's very small. I don't mean the event size is very small, but there's a lot of space for us to spread out. And they've been doing weddings there and things successfully. So they have like a lot of processes in place. So I think we're going to attempt that in December. But then other than that, we have things scheduled coming back like in March, April, May. So we will be back. And people have been so amazing, by the way, just a lot of our customers who I get really emotional because, I'll reach out to them and go, okay, you bought this ticket. And I can't tell you how many people were just like, just say, I'll use it at the next one. Let's save it for next year. No one's banging on my door. I mean, obviously I give refunds to anybody who asks, but most people were just like, just save it. We're going to come back. We know we're coming back, and I just was so touched by that people trusted us that much, but also are just really looking forward to just getting back out there and going on these trips again.
Yeah, we need to reinfuse the lifeblood of what we do back out there. And I can't wait for people to get to commiserate and be a part of something bigger again. Yes. And looking forward to that. When does Kindred Spirits new season kick off?
Well, they just are telling us early 2021 as of now. So I don't think we have an actual date yet, but I expect probably January, February. Historically, that's been when we've come back. So hopefully around then. But we have so many things going on. We filmed all these specials and stuff. So there's a lot happening. So when we come back, we're coming back strong.
Well, let's talk about specials. A few weeks ago, you had a chance to reunite with your fellow castmates of Ghost Hunters that are now part of the show Ghost Nation, Dave Tango, Steve Gonzalez, and Jason Hawes. And you had this reunion in hell, which I thought was a strange way to combine you guys back together. You and Adam, for people that maybe didn't see the original series, were a big part of the Ghost Hunters franchise. And now here you are reuniting with those characters. What was it like to be back in the saddle working with them?
I mean, honestly, it felt like no time had passed. It was so strange. We walked in. I think the nice thing is that we see, especially Steve and Dave, we see them quite a bit over the, at events and things and visit whenever we can. And it was strange to be in a filming situation, an investigative situation again. And it was, but it happened very quickly. It was just like, okay, we're back at it and here we go. And there was there was a different dynamic, it was very pleasant. Everyone was so happy. And even the crew was just like, wow, this is the cool. They loved watching us all work together. And it was awesome. And it was funny because Steve and I investigated together and we were standing there and I looked at Steve and I was like, we never investigated together on Ghost Hunters once, not once. And, because Ghost Hunters had this very defined set of who was going to go investigate with who. It was always like Jay and Grant or Jay and Steve, me and Adam, and Steve and Dave, or me and Chris. And that was it. And so it was so weird to think that after having known Steve for so long, that episode was the first chance people ever saw us to investigate together.
Is that something you would ever be interested in, of having a full-scale Ghost Hunters reunion with all the past characters coming together for a major investigation? Or do you just prefer these little more intimate settings where you get to meet with a couple of them here and there in smaller groupings?
I'd be down for whatever. I talked to, there are a lot of Ghost Hunters cast from season 1 and 2 that I've never even met. There were quite a few people that kind of were transient and came in and out, but I'd be open to whatever. I love the idea of any chance I get to do something like that. I think I don't know that it would ever happen, but if it did, I would definitely partake.
Very cool. Well, I know people are excited about seeing this, and we get asked all the time on the Holzer Files, are you going to have any special guests? Are you going to have any other people join you for these investigations? And really, we're still kind of cutting our teeth. And you know how that important that is in the first season or two of really kind of getting people used to your dynamic before you start inserting other elements. You guys have been doing Kindred Spirits for what? Is this your 5th season right now?
Yeah, this will be our 5th season. And so we've had guests. We've had guests. Right. Throughout most of them. We brought Grant on, I think, in season 3, but it was always the network was always very careful about they didn't really want us to in the first season because they, like you were saying, they wanted people to get to know us, which I thought was really interesting.
Are there any special guests? And I'm not leading this in for you to say me, but I mean, in all seriousness, are there any special guests you'd like to investigate with that, are out there in the field that you've always thought, boy, I'd really love to work with that person?
Oh my gosh. I've been really fortunate because I mean, there's definitely, I feel like I've gotten to work with everyone I've ever wanted to work with, I do wish that I had gotten a chance to get to know Lorraine Warren, or have gotten to work with her. That was someone that I would have liked to have worked with. But I feel like I've been very fortunate because I'm pretty good at, like, if I meet someone at an event or something, it's very easy for me to just be like, hey, you want to try and I'm not shy about talking to them about how I admire what they do, or if I would like to work with them. I do really like the new folks. I love the kids on Destination Fear. I love Chelsea. She is such a sweetheart. So I would love to investigate with her at some point. Just because she's so honest about how she's so new to this, but just loves it. And she reminds me a lot of how I used to be way back when. So she's someone I would definitely give a shout out to. And I wouldn't mind stealing Cindy Kaza for a couple investigations.
I'm sure she'd be happy to join you at some point. She's been on every show, I think, except yours. So it'd be great for her to get to work with you guys as well. And hopefully if things lift next season for Halloween, hopefully they'll be able to bring us all back together again like they did last year in Salem, and we'll get to have a great paranormal party with all of the shows coming together under one roof and investigating some major location. That would be great. I had such a good time doing the Salem Live program.
That was so much fun. And honestly, we revisited that a little bit this season. So we had to go back. We had so much fun during that. We were like, we got to get back in that house. So season 5.
Let me ask you, how do you choose what cases? And is it ever hard? Because I'm sure you've got so many people reaching out, feeling that they're really in need. How do you choose which ones you're going to focus on?
It was, it's a process. So they submit to Adam and me, and then we also have a group email box, and Adam and I go through and pick the ones that resonate with us the most. And then production goes through and kind of gathers more information about them and does interviews, and then they present them to us again. And we'll go meet in person. We didn't get to this time, and we have them all laid out. We try to figure out who needs our help. It's a delicate balance of who needs our help the most, and also how can we make this work for TV. And I don't mean make good TV. I mean, can the location handle a television show? Is it something that has enough space and enough places for people to look at to fill an hour of television? And so it's hard. And this season was very difficult because we were limited to driving to locations. We did not fly anywhere except for, I think I flew to Buffalo once. And we also had to kind of navigate, as I'm sure you experienced, getting people COVID tested and trying to get them tested in time. And then there were the occasional people who were like, I'm not getting COVID tested. And so then we'd have to move on to the next person. So it was, it's hard. It's really, really hard. And I think people, they see us because we're constantly posting hey, we need new cases in this area. And navigating the travel restrictions was next to impossible. It was so difficult because it was ever changing. And so this season was definitely the most difficult to cast, but also every place we went, I felt like we were meant to be there.
I'm looking forward to the launch of the new season, which will be coming out hopefully in the next couple of months here. The book is out and available, Life with the Afterlife, 13 Truths I Learned About Ghosts. Amy Bruni, the author, co-author of this as well. We've got a link for the book so that you can go order it and get your copy now. Amy, stay safe out there and keep in touch. Let us know what's going on as the season progresses. And if there's any of the episodes you definitely want to highlight and have Adam and Chip join us back on, we'd love to have all three of you come back and spend a little time with us here on Darkness Radio.
That'd be so fun. Thank you so much for having me. I appreciate it.
Always. Our doors are always open to you. Stay safe, my friends, and we will be back next week with more of the best in true crime and paranormal talk radio. You've been listening to Darkness Radio.